What if breakfast was illegal somewhere else? In the United States, pouring a bowl of Froot Loops seems completely normal. But in parts of Europe, some ingredients in popular American breakfast foods are restricted, require warning labels, or are banned. The unsettling truth isn't that American grocery stores are filled with poison. It's that the modern food system quietly allows additives that other developed nations have decided aren't worth the risk. And when more than 55 to 60% of the average American's daily calories come from highly processed foods, a percentage even higher for children, small, acceptable exposures stop being small. They become daily, they become cumulative, and almost nobody notices. Food in the United States is regulated primarily by the Food and Drug Administration. The agency sets limits for additives, evaluates safety data, and determines what can legally enter the food supply. On paper, that sounds strict, but much of the system revolves around risk probability. Regulators ask how likely harm is at a given exposure level. If the probability appears low enough and the data does not conclusively show danger, the ingredient is typically allowed within specific limits. Many substances are classified as GRAS, meaning generally recognized as safe. In certain cases, manufacturers can determine this status based on scientific evidence without undergoing a full, independent FDA approval process. Across the Atlantic, the European Food Safety Authority operates under a different regulatory philosophy. The European Union frequently applies the precautionary principle. If credible evidence suggests a substance may pose long-term health risks, even if definitive proof is incomplete, regulators are more likely to restrict or ban it, especially if the additive is not essential. This creates a fundamental difference. The United States often focuses on probability. How likely is harm at current exposure levels? Europe often focuses on possibility. Is there credible potential for harm over time? Both systems claim to protect consumers, but the outcome is visibly different ingredient lists. And because safety limits are calculated for individual substances under modeled consumption patterns, they assume moderate exposure. Modern American diets do not resemble moderate exposure. With ultra-processed foods making up the majority of caloric intake, exposure to additives happens repeatedly across multiple products, every single day. That is where the illusion begins. Each ingredient is within limits, but limits were never meant to stack endlessly. Consider milk production. In the United States, recombinant bovine somatotropin, RBST, was widely used to increase milk yield in dairy cows. The Food and Drug Administration has stated that milk from treated cows is safe for human consumption, citing no statistically significant difference in nutritional composition. However, the European Union banned milk from RBST-treated cows. The decision was driven largely by animal welfare concerns after findings showed increased rates of mastitis and other health complications in treated cows. Now consider soda. Brominated vegetable oil, once used in citrus-flavored soft drinks to stabilize flavorings, contains bromine. In high or prolonged exposures, bromine accumulation has been associated with neurological symptoms, such as memory issues and nerve disturbances. It has been banned in the European Union and Japan. In the United States, it remained legal for years before manufacturers voluntarily reformulated many products. Chicken processing offers another contrast. In the United States, poultry is commonly washed in antimicrobial solutions, including chlorine-based rinses, to reduce pathogens like salmonella. The European Union bans chlorinated chicken imports. Now consider pork production. Ractopamine, a beta-agonist drug used to promote lean muscle growth in pigs, is approved in the United States under regulated limits. It is banned or restricted in over 150 countries, including across the European Union and China. The European Food Safety Authority has raised concerns regarding animal welfare and potential cardiovascular effects in humans. Meanwhile, American regulators maintain that approved residue levels are safe. Bread presents another striking example. Azotic carbonamide is used as a dough conditioner in some baked products. It's also called the yoga mat chemical. You'll understand why in a moment. It breaks down into semicarbazide during heating, a compound that has shown carcinogenic potential in animal experiments. The European Union prohibits its use in food. Singapore imposes severe penalties for manufacturers who use it. In the United States, it has been allowed within regulated thresholds. The nickname comes from its use outside the food industry. Azotic carbonamide is also used to make foamed plastics like yoga mats and shoe soles, which has raised concerns about its presence in food. Then there are artificial food dyes. Color additives such as red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6 are common in cereals, candies, and beverages marketed toward children. In 2007, a UK study linked certain synthetic dyes to increased hyperactivity in some children. Following public outcry, the European Union required warning labels on products containing specific dyes, stating they may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. The United States does not mandate similar warnings. As a result, identical brands often use different formulations depending on where they are sold. Same logo, but different ingredients. Most regulatory approvals are built around toxicology thresholds. At what dose does harm appear in animal models? What safety factor should be applied? But chronic diseases do not operate on short timelines. Cancer, metabolic disorders, cardiovascular disease, and hormonal disruption develop gradually, influenced by repeated exposure patterns over years. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, operating under the World Health Organization, classifies substances based on carcinogenic potential. Possibly carcinogenic does not guarantee disease. It indicates credible evidence suggesting risk under certain conditions. The issue is cumulative exposure. When preservatives, emulsifiers, stabilizers, artificial colors, and processing agents appear across multiple foods consumed daily, total intake can approach regulatory thresholds more frequently than originally modeled. Children may face additional vulnerability. Research suggests that while not every child reacts to artificial dyes, some may experience measurable behavioral changes. Endocrine disrupting properties have also been investigated for certain additives and packaging materials. Endocrine disruption is subtle. Hormones regulate growth, metabolism, reproduction, and neurological development. Small disturbances, especially during developmental stages, may produce effects that are not immediately visible. These are not dramatic poisoning events. They are incremental influences. When the majority of calories come from products engineered for shelf life and hyperpalatability, additive exposure becomes part of a broader metabolic environment. One additive alone may not matter, but 50 exposures a day might. If these differences are known, why does the system remain largely unchanged? Economics plays a central role. Reformulating products can be costly. Changing supply chains, altering textures, and shortening shelf life affect profitability. As long as ingredients remain within legal safety standards established by the Food and Drug Administration, there is little regulatory pressure for removal. Scientific standards also create inertia. Demonstrating definitive harm from low-dose, long-term exposure in humans is extraordinarily difficult. Chronic diseases involve multiple variables like genetics, lifestyle, environment. Establishing direct causation requires extensive, long-duration research. Lobbying efforts from agricultural and food industry groups further complicate regulatory reform. Bright cereals, soft breads, neon sodas, these products are familiar. They are associated with childhood, convenience, and affordability. And public health messaging often emphasizes personal responsibility. Eat better, exercise more, make informed choices. Those recommendations matter. But individual choice operates within a food environment shaped by industrial design, aggressive marketing, and economic incentives. When ultra-processed foods are cheaper and more accessible than whole foods, systemic influence becomes difficult to ignore. The scary truth about food in America isn't that everything is poison, but that safe usually means safe in small, isolated amounts tested one ingredient at a time, while real life is built on eating those ingredients over and over again every single day for years. Other countries remove certain additives when warning signs appear, but the U.S. often waits for undeniable proof of harm. When more than half of daily calories come from ultra-processed food, small exposures add up fast. So start reading labels, start asking questions, and start choosing food like your long-term health truly depends on it.